Hey everyone, good afternoon. I'm Chief Meteorologist Darrell Winninger from the Central Oregon Daily Weather Center. And across the high desert on this Thursday, we've had tons of sunshine, some afternoon clouds. No rain in sight and a little bit of haze. That haze is sticking around but not really impacting our air quality. When we look outside through Central Oregon, we see some gorgeous views, but the next couple of days we see a shift in the weather pattern. That is, our zonal flow gets interrupted by a ridge of high pressure coming in from the Four Corners region. That brings tons of sunshine, very dry conditions, and a big warming trend that lasts through the weekend and into next week. Then more changes are expected by Monday and Tuesday. So we're going to take that deep dive in your most reliable forecast, look at how this weather pattern is impacting us now, what's going to happen through the next couple of days, and what impacts we can expect, and especially as we start off the work week, not to mention the weekend with temperatures that are just going to be so high. So that's a view outside. That haze not really impacting air quality, both the DEQ mapping contour and the eSpace real-time temperature gauges all show good air quality. That wind is coming out of the west, and it has been a little on the breezy side. And that cloud cover not bringing anything in the way of rain. Now, this is all part of a bigger setup, a synoptic setup that has several waves of moisture, like this weakening cold front, this trough that's digging into the coastline. These are backed up over the North Pacific Ocean and through the Gulf of Alaska, all attached to a parent low. So when we switch gears, we're looking at infrared satellite imagery, and there's an enhancement on it to really pull out those tall clouds, the tops of the clouds. And you can see where that low pressure is, just over the Gulf of Alaska near the Aleutian Islands. It has one system that's one wave of moisture that's rolling through right now, and another one that's going to be rolling through on Friday. These back-to-back waves of moisture aren't bringing enough moisture to actually bring us any showers, but we do get the in and out clouds from them, and that's slowing down any chance of warming. That's why temperatures are near average and staying near average. South of that, there's a broad ridge of high pressure out over the Pacific Ocean that comes into play, but not until later into the 7-day planner. What we're actually tracking is a high pressure that's developing over the Four Corners region, and this high is going to be the one that pushes back into the Pacific Northwest. It moves to the northwest over our region, and as it does, it brings that very dry air mass from over the Four Corners region right into our neck of the woods. So when we zoom back in and take a closer look, winds have been getting a little breezy at times. Those white lines are isobars, equal lines of pressure, and they are fluctuating, and that just means that when they tighten up, stronger winds are expected. But we're not done yet. Let's look at a different satellite imagery. This is water vapor, and similar to the infrared satellite imagery, but what it shows is where the cloud cover is, but also where that moisture is. And right now we're looking at the lowest level that satellites provide when it comes to water vapor imagery, and what it's showing us is over Central Oregon, it's dry enough that we're not getting any precipitation from these clouds. There's another pocket of dry air behind today's trough, and then there's Friday's trough. But let's move south. Let's go over the Four Corners region where our high is developing. That is extremely dry air, very arid over there. And that's the air mass that's going to be moving into the Pacific Northwest. With that drying out and temperatures rising, that's leaving us with more sunshine, and fine surface fuels are going to be drying out even quicker. And with very little in the way of moisture to help that out, any fires that start are likely to spread rapidly. Good news about this weekend is wind speeds come back down to a light breeze, and relative humidity values are mostly in the 20s with some 30s. Now remember, this is percentages, but for the most part it's not as dry as it could be, but it is very dry. Now our forecast model, this is a high resolution blend of two different forecast models, and I threw winds on top of it as well. So winds this evening are going to be pretty breezy, but we get some clearing overnight. And then by tomorrow, more sunshine, afternoon clouds. See, that pattern continues to repeat. We stay in that with temperatures that are going to be near average for this time of the year. We're talking low 80s, some 70s, but by Saturday, tons of sunshine, and that sunshine continues into Sunday as well. We already looked at this one, so let's go ahead and move on. Temperatures today, in the last 24 hours, I should say, topped out in the 70s and 80s. We're still waiting on some final numbers, not quite done with peak overheating just yet, and actual temperatures are mostly sitting around that same area. See, Madras is 81 degrees right now, 86 in Warm Springs, so still waiting on some of those maximum temperature numbers, but all in all, we're running between 2 degrees warmer and 3 degrees cooler than we were 24 hours ago, so did not move too far when it comes to temperatures. A little bit of a cool down was expected, and that's what it's showing, but by tomorrow, we see the opposite. Don't move much, but a little bit of a warm-up is expected across Central Oregon. And as we go forward through the rest of this evening and tonight, temperatures do fall back into the 40s, but notice it's going to be a pretty quick drop, but going from very pleasant to not too cool by 11 p.m. Now, remember, tonight is the Crooked River Roundup, and so if you're planning on headed out there, the temperatures aren't going to be too far off from this. Note that winds will be tapering off through the evening, and we're staying pretty dry with clouds sitting out overnight. And then going forward through the next couple of days, by Friday, we have very high UV intensity forecast conditions. Now, by the afternoon, more clouds are expected, but that additional cloud cover is coming after solar noon, which right now, this time of the year, is about 1 p.m. And Saturday and Sunday, our UV intensity forecast cranks up, goes from 8 to 9 to 10, but by Monday, notice that dip. That dip is because our ridge of high pressure is going to be flattening, and there's going to be even more changes with that. But just a quick recap on those tips for UV intensity forecast: a very high, sunglasses and a hat. Most people are probably going to want one, both, or a variation thereof. And protective clothing. If you have sensitive skin, you might want to trade in the SPF for UPF. Also seek the shade and make sure you're staying hydrated. Now, if you're spending a lot of time outside through this weekend, and you're going to want to use sunscreen, but reapply it every 2 hours. Now, let's talk about why we have that change on Monday. And we're going to get to it, but starting off, we're looking at just this full weather pattern. This is 500 millibar heights, and what it does is this product takes a thickness, and it shows us just how high that 500 millibar line is going to be, or the 500 millibars is going to be. So it helps us paint the picture of where low pressure systems are, where high pressure systems are, and where we're seeing an interaction between the two. And what's happening over Central Oregon is we're in what's called a zonal flow for the entire Pacific Northwest. That's a general west to east flow. That's how things typically flow, but this time of the year we get ridging, a dome of high pressure builds into the area, or a trough moves through. When we have this zonal flow, what it means for us is winds are going to be breezy in the afternoon. We get those in and out clouds, and those in and out clouds correspond with these troughs, these weak cold fronts, these weak waves of moisture all coming off of a parent low over the Gulf of Alaska. We already talked about that. And through Friday, we're still looking at highs in the 80s and some 70s, so still near average, just a slight bump in temperatures. By Saturday, cranking the thermostat up, getting well into the 80s, lower to mid 80s, some upper 80s expected under tons of sunshine, with winds getting a little breezy at times, but not as bad as they've been the last couple of days. By Sunday, firmly under this ridge of high pressure from the Four Corners region, we're looking at tons of sunshine, a light breeze, with temperatures topping out in the 90s and 80s across Central Oregon. So that represents a significant jump in temperatures as we go from Saturday to Sunday, and then going even past that, we're staying pretty hot on Monday, but Monday is when we see that shift in the weather pattern. Monday is when things really begin to change, because what's happening is that high pressure coming up from the Four Corners region, it's going to start to flatten out. A flattening ridge leads to the potential of convective development. And in short, what that means is because high pressure is backing off, we have a chance of showers. Any showers that develop are going to be tracking for thunderstorm potential. And the convective temperature is such that we could be topping out above the convective temperature. Meteorologists call that busting the cap, because when there's a little bit of subsidence over the area, there's a cap where vertical development can't really get through it. And when we break through that, because our temperature gets above the convective temperature, that's when we have a chance of thunderstorms. Now, we're not looking at a widespread outbreak of severe weather, but there is a chance of showers with some thunderstorms by Monday, and then temperatures dip back down on Tuesday. So let's go ahead and time all this out for you. Here is a look at your forecast model. This is another one that we typically use on air, and it shows our high pressure over the Pacific Ocean. It's actually kind of like right behind this camera. And then it shows another high pressure over the Four Corners region with a trough that's approaching the area this evening. One already pushed through today. That's what brought us to in and out clouds. Now for tonight, we get some clearing. By tomorrow, we start off sunny, get some afternoon clouds. That's trough number 2. All right, it's technically number 3, but starting with today, it's number 2. It's the one that pushes through tomorrow. Still not much in the way of precipitation Oops, I hit the wrong button. Let's try that one again. Okay, so diving in, taking a closer look, that next trough starts to approach the area. We get more clouds, not much in the way of precipitation. And then by Saturday, that high pressure from the Four Corners region, or some notes will call it the Intermountain West, that pushes into the Pacific Northwest. This is what brings our sunshine. Few clouds on Saturday, temperatures cranking up. Temperatures topping out in the 90s with some 80s on Sunday, and still under that broad ridge of high pressure. Then that high starts to flatten. That's opening the door for some convective development. So let's go ahead and move over to our GFS. Remember, the forecast model I typically use on air doesn't go all the way out through Monday, and so we use long-range forecast model guidance for that. That's what the GFS is. Not as high resolution, but it's still going to help paint a picture of what's going to happen. And we are going to zoom in, even though it's not high resolution, I'm still going to get pretty close so we can really see what's happening. So through Monday, by noon, we're starting to see increasing clouds. By the afternoon, we start to see some showers develop. Southern Tri-County area and south of the Tri-County area. We're talking south central Oregon along the Cascades. Then that convection moves into the high desert through the rest of the afternoon, getting into the evening. This is where we have that potential for some thunderstorms. It's not written in stone yet, but the last couple of days I've been talking about this chance of showers and thunderstorms. By Monday, that ridge of high pressure still flattened, and we still have a chance of showers with some afternoon and evening thunderstorms. And then by Wednesday, it shapes up, and we start to see another ridge of high pressure build into the region. So let's look at that from zoomed out. Okay, we can see a ridge of high pressure out over the Pacific, and by Sunday at 11 p.m., that high is still over central Oregon. Fast forward, and by Monday, we start to get that, since our ridge of high pressure flattened, we start to get that convection, that chance of thunderstorm activity continues through Tuesday. But then by Wednesday, watch this ridge that's over the Pacific Ocean. That starts to develop and broaden out even more, and that builds into the Pacific Northwest. So by the time we get to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week, we're back under a ridge of high pressure. It's a different high pressure. This is a maritime ridge of high pressure versus a continental ridge of high pressure. So not as dry of air, but still temperatures above average for this time of the year. So between now and Saturday, 11 p.m., maybe a few sprinkles coming with those weak waves of moisture pushing through the region. Now winds today have been a little on the gusty side, gusts between 10 and 20 miles per hour. Actual wind speeds 10 to 15 miles per hour, I should say. They picked up a little bit, and they are picking up around this time of day. By the evening, we're looking between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m., we're looking at 10 to 20 mile per hour winds. And then by tomorrow, that repeats itself. Later in the day, late afternoon going into the evening, winds get breezy, but by Saturday and Sunday, we're looking at just a light breeze. So for tonight, temperatures are going to be falling back into the 40s with a few 50s possible. By Friday, we're wrapping up the work week with more sunshine, some afternoon clouds, highs in the 70s and 80s, splitting the difference on either side of 80 degrees. And here is your 7-day planner. It shows that temperatures start to crank up Saturday, really pushing the mercury by Sunday. Monday, it's going to be even hotter. That's when we get our chance of showers and thunderstorms Monday and Tuesday. Again, not a widespread washout, not widespread thunderstorm outbreak, none of that. Just a chance of showers and some thunderstorms, very similar to what we had this past Tuesday. And then by Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, mid to upper 80s, still above average for this time of the year, but we dry out, we get more sunshine, and temperatures start to rebound later next week. So here's a quick look at your weather headlines for this Thursday, June the 26th. Seasonal and PM clouds Friday. That means mid to upper 70s, lower to mid 80s. And then by the weekend, we're bringing the heat. That's on deck, and it's going to be very dry. And fire weather conditions remain a top concern. One of the reasons why is when we look back at the monthly rainfall deficit, we have nearly 0% of what we should have gotten for the last 30 days across the Tri-County area. That's not really impacting our year-to-date numbers. Actually, it kind of is. This has worsened where that yellow is spreading out. That deficit is spreading out versus a surplus. And so the drought monitor for the U.S. came out today. This is what it looked like last week. Last week we saw the abnormally dry conditions come into central Oregon and the moderate drought come into areas around us. Even severe drought east of Pendleton, and then another one west of Portland and Salem. But today, that spread out quite a bit. All of Central Oregon is either abnormally dry, and some of Crook County even has a moderate drought. That severe drought didn't budge too much, but we are drying out. We need the rain, and our headlines don't really provide much in the way of rain until we hit Monday and Tuesday. Even at that, it's going to be showers with a chance of thunderstorms both days. Now that is the latest in weather. Join us tonight on Central Oregon Daily News. We'll have the latest headlines and your most reliable forecast, and I'll be live from the Crooked River Roundup. It's going to be fun for the evening lineup. That's it. We'll see you later.